This is WAW! What a week.
What a week. PoliTricks.
Welcome to another episode of #PoliTricks with our master interpreter, with Mr. If ever there needed to be a podcast of national unity, I don't know if I'd be a part of it unless I get a cabinet post or I deputize the president or I'm the president myself. Please make some noise for Botsang Modimowame Moiloa.
Good morning, Brother Fresh.
Botsang.
Morning to the followers and the viewers.
What's up?
Yeah, no, I'm okay, bro. We had a little of a break last week due to the unforeseen, loss of our colleague and friend and brother Kuvesh, but hey, there's a lot happening in this country.
Yeah, we haven't done this in 2 weeks. So
Yes.
in 2 weeks, a lot has happened. Election results, the announcement of a GNU. It doesn't stop.
Coalition agreements.
A massive inauguration.
Yeah, amounting to R500 million rents. And Fresh, you know what? South Africa is a movie that is being recorded on daily basis.
Sure.
And
Let's start with the GNU. The GNU, the Government of National Unity.
yes.
Yes, sir.
What do you call it? The GNU?
GNU.
Oh, okay. Look, Fresh. First of all, I think we must define what is a government of national unity. I'm one of the people who is saying there is no government of national unity
Okay.
in South Africa. And I'll tell you why. Because there's been samples of government of national unity in the world and even in this country. One, a government of national unity occurs when there's crisis, normally. When there's a war or political instability in a country, sometimes even natural crisis where a head of state will stand up, for example, deaths, will stand up and say, for peace and prosperity in the country, for progress, or economy crash down, let me call the other opposition and sit down and let's get collectively to run the country.
Okay.
So it normally comes in as a resolution for a certain situation of transition. In South Africa, it happened in 1994 to 1996. And if people don't think the ANC won elections in 1994 and President Mandela invited members of other political parties, no, it didn't just happen like that. There was a document. There was a transitional a constitution of the country, which legally laid down the basis for a government of national unity. It was enshrined in the transitional constitution, the constitution of 1993.
Sure.
If you recall that the constitution was adopted before we went to elections in 1993, and it informed the holding of elections. It informed on how will we include, it was an all-inclusive government where the minority rights were protected. That's why we had F.W. de Klerk being the second deputy president. So it was well-defined legally. There was a document which was called the Transitional Constitution. That government of national unity ended when? In 1996, actually. Technically when we speak, somebody can say it ended in 1999 when we went to elections. No,
Sure.
In 1996 when the current constitution of the country was adopted, then the mistake that I personally think our jurists or lawyers did, and those who are supposed to be making laws, I think they did is, we thought all is smooth sailing,
Sure.
all will be well, ANC will rule until Jesus comes, and we did not make provision in the current constitution of the country, in case there's no outright majority, what would happen? In case there's crisis, any form of crisis, what will the government do? Do we have crisis in South Africa to get need in the government of national unity? I think so. We've got financial crisis, we've got economic crisis, we've got security crisis, education, health, infrastructure.
Immigration.
We have crisis. Therefore, it requires us to can go and consult with even those that you don't like, even those that you don't normally work with, to say, for the best interest of the country, how can we move forward? But now, in absence of a rule, a law, or a directive document of government of national unity, we cannot call what is happening now a government of national unity.
So what is it then? Is it just a coalition?
It's a pure coalition that started with the African National Congress, the former a leading party in South Africa. It is still led by numbers, but it's not ruling the country because they didn't get the 50+1 percentage. And the Democratic Alliance. if you look at it, probably why we are calling it an agreement between the two parties, it was first signed by the ANC and the DA.
Sure.
Then the Inkatha came after, and the Inkatha, I still do not even know whether they actually signed that agreement. Then the Patriotic Alliance came after. Now we have learned the PAC and the Good Party have joined. Do they sign the same document that was drafted by the Democratic Alliance, which when you look at it and you look at the Moonshot Pact.
Yes, sir.
Actually, this agreement of the ANC, it was informed by the Moonshot Pact. That's where it comes from. And I laughed actually thinking of it when Helen Zille, the leader of, or is the federal chairperson of the Democratic Alliance, said, actually that document, for it to be signed, it was actually made possible by Floyd Shivambo of the EFF.
No, because he asked for a break in Parliament, for proceedings.
Yes.
And because as Parliament proceedings were carrying on, they were still busy negotiating the final details of this agreement.
Yes.
So that break that they got,
the 15 minutes break,
allowed for them to actually finalize the final details.
To sign it, yeah. But you know what I call it? I call it an agreement that was signed in the toilet or during the toilet break. How on earth, Fresh, do you sign such an important document during a 15 minutes break? When were there engagements? You know, the ANC calls itself a broad church. They consult. Did the ANC NEC ever had time to consult with legal advisors to present this document in front of the NEC? Fine, they didn't have time to go and consult with the branches as they normally would do. You know, because it's a policy document. They have a policy committee. Did they do that? I don't think it went through. And I'll tell you why I don't think that process happened.
But do they have the luxury of all of those other checkpoints?
Yes.
Or we need to do this because we need to elect a head of state.
They did not have to sign that document to elect the head of state or to start government, to start working government. What is the rush for? I've suggested that the ANC should have even formed, which is constitutionally provided, a minority government, then enter into negotiations for this agreement with a level head. And you know where were they exposed? I watched during the course of this past week. There was a TV debate between Helen Zille and the Secretary General of the ANC, Mr. Fikile Mbalula. I watched that debate. You could see how Helen Zille actually exposed Fikile Mbalula, that he was not clear of what is it that they signed. And he signed, he couldn't explain. You know, those people use mathematics and the 60% and the 40% and the mutual consensus, and all. He could not explain that. It shows that one, they were not the authors of the document, and they signed the document under a rush. Why were they rushing for? There's been too much rush in the country in the last 2 weeks.
So how are they going to elect a president without the agreement? Because I don't think the DA would have said, okay, we throw our votes in the same kitty as you for President Ramaphosa, without that document being signed.
Well, you don't only need the DA to do that. There's other political parties who are sitting in the National Assembly. They don't know how could the vote come. And remember, the Constitution makes provision to go for the first round and to go for the second round. But you see now again, I don't understand why people are fearing to do a minority government. The ANC could have said, based on the constitutional provision section so and so, we are forming a minority government. We will put President Ramaphosa as the president of a minority government because it's allowed. Then they go ahead. The only challenge, and I've said it here, the only challenge with a minority government is when votes have to happen like that. You can go and govern without a president. What that parliament do its job. Then implement the policies that are in place, because the only challenge will be when there's a new bill that needs to be passed or new decisions. That's where the challenge would be. But again, Fresh, in conclusion on this GNU thing, for me, this is not a government of national unity. It's a coalition government where small parties have now popped in. And if you look at it, the IFP is the biggest party there, and then the Patriotic Alliance, the Good Party and the PAC, shockingly, they come with 1 seat each. And this thing, it's happening while the country is moving.
Sure.
You understand? And that's the interesting part.
The thing is, the train has to leave the station. And those that maybe we didn't get a ticket in advance, we'll have to buy stuff, bakwele.
And unfortunately, that's where we are going to be. But again, governance has taught me that things that are done hastily, when you do things rashly, you are bound to make very serious mistakes. We are assembling a vehicle here without a guideline document. We are assembling a vehicle, but we want to ride this vehicle and put other parts while it's moving. And for me, that's very dangerous. It may catch up with us in future.
Surely the ANC would have gone, for instance, with a DA, given the DA numbers,
Yes.
to make sure that whatever we agree on means that we are guaranteed to always have a 51 plus,
yes.
without fail.
Yes.
That way we can have a term that is uninterrupted.
Uninterrupted and stability.
Obviously, we have to give some and take some.
Look,
So, for instance, if Pala is ever put on the table, the DA can't vote against it because that's not part of the deal, for instance.
Yeah. Well, Fresh, when you enter a negotiated political settlement, there's compromises and gives. Yeah. And we have seen in South Africa the mistake that the ANC have done in the past, and again, this is my personal view, they're repeating it. You give away what? It's very important. You understand? Giving away things or matters that has defined you and made you as the African National Congress, and I have a problem with that. I have a problem with the PAC joining the pact, and the PAC it's insignificant, but what the ANC has given, how are they going to pass? Very important. First, let me tell you elements of a government of national unity. There's 3 or 4 of them. One of them is national security, the very first thing, whether domestic or from foreign forces, national security. And I think both parties agree on national security. There's no difference there that we want safe borders and all that. The DA looks to America for for security and political assistance and international relations. ANC looks to Russia, and they're not shy about it. They look to China and to Russia. But there's issues of socio-economic development. It's the second, and after we feel safe in the country, you look at health, you look at education, you look at the economy of the country, and the redistribution of the resources, completely opposite sides, because the DA does not believe in that. So how are we going to address the primary existence of the ANC was to address the historical imbalances, and particularly for black people. Will they be able to do that with the DA vote? Will the DA vote for those things when they have failed to do it in the Western Cape where they've been governing?
But surely all of those nuances, those finer points will be in said document. Because as much as it was rushed, in inverted commas, there should be enough attention paid to the details such that then we can do things in the interest of the people, in the interest of service delivery, in the interest of South Africa.
That's what
versus what our policies may be.
That's what government of national unity talks about. It should be for the people, for the interest of the country. But I have said before, the DA and the ANC, they've been having this 60 plus forever, since 1994. There is no year of election or administration that has passed when the two parties were not in power. If they have failed, both of them, if they have failed to address the interest of South Africans, they come jointly, because they always had, actually the DA and ANC numbers combined, all the time, it was 2/3 majority. All the time. Because the ANC has never been below 54%, the DA has never been below 20%, 22, 23%. They always had 2/3 majority. Why do we, as a nation, think that these people, who are still the same bunch of people, it's not even the different people, it's the same bunch of people. Ramaphosa has been there from 1993, you understand? Every one of them, Zille has been there from... Why do we, as a nation, have to believe them that they jointly have been misgoverned in this country, fail to address the racial as well as the inequalities in the country for the last 30 years, and they will do it now, just because the ANC has dropped to 40% and the DA has dropped to 20%. When they had the power, when they had the resources, when they had the numbers, they didn't do the right things. What makes us think that they will do the right things when they are actually weaker than ever before? People may sit and say, I'm very negative, I'm a pessimist. No, I'm being realistic. We are not bringing new people. We are not saying ANC and EFF, you have never governed jointly or with UDM, let's give them a chance, or DA and others, or Freedom Front and DA. We are not saying that because those will be completely new. We are saying the very same ones who have been messing up, go ahead and clean up your mess. That's what we are saying. And this is why I question democracy. This is where I question, how does democracy work when the people's voices are not heard?
So are you from the same group of people who are saying, because the MK party in KZN have the majority, how is it that they are not in the provincial government?
And this is where
and surely, but that's how the system works. In the absence of 50 plus 1, how we choose to collaborate becomes the order of the day.
Yeah.
And if we don't like that system, then surely we must vote for the system to change.
Yes.
Or vote for a different system. But we can't, when the system doesn't favor those we like, all of a sudden say the system is broken or the system is unfair.
And I agree with you fully. And I'm glad you are raising the word the system.
Yes.
I've been consistently saying the problem in this country, it's not the people, it's not the voters, it's the system. The system has been designed in such a way that it disempowers the majority and the people. For example...
So you have the franchise and then you're disenfranchised.
Yeah, exactly, disenfranchised. For example, let's use a typical example.
Yeah.
It is well right that the ANC, because they are the leading party with 40%, to go and lead engagement. Because that's what they were doing. They started knocking on...
They were Miss Party.
Yeah. Understand? You know, when you go to those brothels in Amsterdam and you knock at each and every door.
I can't relate, but we'll take your word for it.
Those are the ones who were doing that. Now, whether MK was sleeping in KZN, and anyway, the DA did it in the Western Cape.
Yeah.
They are the leading party in the Western Cape. They've led the formation of government. But why the MK didn't do that is their own problem, why they were sleeping, okay? But why wouldn't you allow a national party that had a party at national level, 40%, to lead engagement and lead the formation of a government? However, you don't allow a party that has almost 45% to lead engagement on the provincial government. How is that possible?
But surely the onus is on them to lead the engagement.
And like I said, if they were sleeping...
And if you don't show up to the event, again, like I said, this is like a train, unfortunately. The train is leaving the station.
Okay.
And you're on board and you can be involved.
The problem with this train...
Yeah.
is that it left the masses behind. And this is where I call democracy demon crazy, because it's full of demons. It's crazy that the majority of the people in KwaZulu-Natal, and I use it as an example, I agree with you that if MK was sleeping, somebody had to lead, somebody had to connive, people had to sit in the corner. But I'm saying, Fresh, people have talked through a ballot. The people of South Africa said, ANC, you deserve 40. The people of KZN have said, MK, you deserve 45 or whatever. And the people of the Western Cape have said the same, okay? Now, the will of the people is we want ANC to lead South Africa, to continue leading, but at a certain percentage.
But democracy says at 50 plus 1,
yes,
you can do that. In the absence of that, it's whoever can get to 51 first.
That's how mad democracy is. That's how wrong democracy is.
But that's how it works, though.
Yeah, well, and I think I'm one of the people who says we have to now start talking about amending and changing the rules of this country to suit our population demographics, to suit our historical background, to suit the fact that we are the most unequal society on earth. You want to take democracy that works very well in a country like India, in the US, and everywhere else, and apply it in an abnormal society. You cannot apply common practice rules in an abnormal, because we are an abnormal society. We are definitely, we are not a normal society whereby...
What makes us abnormal?
The fact that we are unequal.
Sure.
The fact that we still vote along the color lines. The fact that we never went through the reparations. Yes, you understand? Okay. We never went through the reparations and the correcting the wrongs of the past. That's why people today, including myself, we still see the Democratic Alliance as a white party that protects white interests.
There's still unanswered questions. There's still people who haven't been tried for apartheid crimes.
Exactly the point.
There's a lot of unresolved.
There's still a question of land ownership, and again, when I speak land ownership, unlike Moeletsi Mbeki, I'm talking about the entire land. I'm not talking about agricultural land.
Sure.
I'm talking about the rivers, the seas, the whole economic land, the mines and the minerals. The wealth also, fresh. Part of the simple wealth of South Africa is government administration. Government is the biggest spender. I'm telling you, and I've said for the years, and I want anybody to challenge me in this country. I've been in government for 27 years now. 93%, 91% of government contracts, government business goes to white-owned companies. Simple one. I'm not talking land. Forget land and big stuff. Government does business. Government want to buy water, coffee, vehicles, water. They are still going to white-owned businesses. How can that be normal when you talk of transforming a society? When you, as the ANC, a leader of government, you are talking of empowering black people, and you give them crumbs, and you take multi-billion. Today, we are sitting on an inauguration that is costing us almost 500 million, almost 500 million rands to inaugurate a business. It's a party, and I'm one of the people who have been against inaugurations from day one. I must tell you a story that I got into trouble when I started working. I thought about it this week because I wrote a tweet and I wrote to the president. I tagged the president and the presidency. And I said, but Mr. President, you and Gayton McKenzie, the leader of the Political Alliance, apparently you are giving your salaries to the needy. And which is a good thing, we appreciate. But you give your 3 million salary to the needy and you blow in one day 500 million. What nonsense is that? Where is logic? If President Ramaphosa think whatever foundation is supporting, why would go and play $1 billion? And people are saying, but you never said that when it was Zuma, when it was Mbeki and man. I said, no, I did. Let me remind you, I was very young. I was a senior official at Foreign Affairs at that time. And I was responsible for provisioning administration. It's called supply chain management today.
Yes, sir.
And so all the payments had to pass my desk. And I was a very junior official. And
so what year is this?
That was 1990. When was President Mandela inaugurated? 10th May 1994.
Yes, sir.
So this was in 1995. And we had a state visit, or late 94, of the Queen Elizabeth. You remember the story? Winnie Madikizela Mandela made noise that we bought tablecloth, tafeldoek, for 20,000 rand because it had to be a certain time for Queen Elizabeth.
For the Queen, yes.
Now, my employer at that time, Department of Foreign Affairs, the record today, had to pay for it because this was a foreign visit. And that invoice came to my desk. I refused to pay and was in trouble just because Winnie Mandela was the Deputy Minister of Arts and Culture, I think so. And I got into trouble with that because I was in protest to say, but why are we wasting money?
On a tablecloth.
On a tablecloth for the Queen of Nogal, you understand? So I've been against the inaugurations. We could have used this money, and President Ramaphosa is not new in this process. He has been the head of state. I mean, he's handing over to himself. Why do we need a fanfare? Why do we need a party? You look at the number of the leaders who came here. Most of them are African leaders.
So you're saying an inauguration should be for a first-time president?
Yeah, first time maybe.
But if you're going back to your office...
But it is. But even that, even if it's first time, why do we have to spend? I live next to the Waterkloof Air Force Base. Since last week, I've been seeing 2 Falcons and a fighter jet, practicing the whole week. And I spoke to friends in the army to say, how much fuel are you burning with this practice? And how much? We have children without classrooms. You understand? I don't say we should neglect other forms of business. We have cultural affairs. We have other things to do as a country. But our priorities as a nation are not well aligned. We can't spend 500 million on a party when we don't have schools, when we have floods now in KZN have destroyed people's home, and we go and we party. And you still expect the same people who are partying there to come and correct the mess of the past. I want to see what the DA is going to do now. because part of their agreement is that they will get 20% of the cabinet, the ministers and what. It's part of the agreement, which makes it about 6 ministers. This is the same Democratic Alliance that has been saying the cabinet is bloated, the cabinet is too big.
There's zero chance of the cabinet de-bloating right now.
Absolutely, because now President Ramaphosa, in the next 24 to 48 hours, there's no prescribed time, he must now appoint.
No, unless they de-bloat the cabinet, and then the DA still get the 20% of the de-bloated cabinet. Then it's a win-win for everyone.
Yes, but you think they will do that? I doubt it. We have few days. The president will announce his cabinet. He must first appoint the deputy president.
Sure.
And then he must appoint all the
Do you think it's going to be Steenhuisen?
Nah, I don't think so. Look, the bed in my ear, and I read, and I listen, and I look at Helen Zille when she talks. You know, they are pompous and proud.
Do you think it's Helen?
No, I think it's going to still be Paul Mashatile.
Okay, so not
I think they've reached a compromise. I think so. But Steenhuisen or Zille can't be unless the president appoints Zille. Remember, the president has 3 or 4 cabinet posts that he can appoint people who are not MPs.
I hope Mama Naledi Pandor is one of them.
Look,
I think she's kicked ass at DERCO, and we need that continuity.
I think they should keep. Look, they're old, but I think she can be kept. In one of the old pack.
No, she delivers.
She can be kept. But the minister in the presidency, the DA is very smart. They want that position.
Sure.
Now, I've always said, minister in the presidency, it's like deputy ministers in departments.
Absolutely.
Deputy ministers are in charge of state-owned entities. Minister in the presidency is in charge of government business. It's normally the deputy president. But when President Ramaphosa, you see, now this thing is coming back to bite them. When President Ramaphosa took over power, and he took all these important key strategic ministries to the presidency.
Yes.
Kumbuzo Chabeni came and Ziziko, right, moved intelligence there, and you know, the early warning centers in the presidency. Now the minister and the president who's in charge of government business, which the other thing that he does is monitoring and evaluation of the performance of other departments or ministries. Imagine if they put Helen Zille, there was Steenhuisen there. And I was shocked, actually. The Steenhuisen is young. Yeah? I never thought he's so young. He's 49. Yeah. So if they put him there, he is going to be boss to all of these other ministers.
Yeah, he's going to be the head boy.
Yes, you understand? So it's a very strategic position. You're in charge of government business. You are the manager. You are, the supervisor of all other ministers. I think they will get that. I listen to Gate. I think the PAC, they lack the backbone. They will get a one minister's position. Patricia de Lille may be retained. She has been in government with the ANC. She has been a minister.
Sure.
And I think she did well. But the Patriotic Alliance, they are very clear. They've asked for 2 ministries, and they want at least one, and one deputy, or else they are pulling out of this whole thing.
Yeah.
And that's the threat they're giving us.
I was going to ask you about the PA because you are a Pan-Africanist.
Yeah.
And the PAC obviously came late to the party. They came to the party, on Tuesday?
Yes.
And they confirmed that, yes, we would rather get involved from the inside than be standing out here. And they also mentioned the fact that, yes, we may only have 1 seat in Parliament, but we bring a wealth of knowledge, we bring experience, we are still about the land, so the land agenda still needs to be on the table. So people mustn't think because we have 1 seat, we don't have any clout, or we don't bring years of experience, we don't bring something that no one else could possibly bring with just 1 seat. What are your thoughts on that as a Pan-Africanist?
Well, number one, Fresh, this is not new.
Yeah.
You are saying they came in on Tuesday during the past week, and they came late.
Yeah.
They did it in 1994, if you recall.
Sure.
When Azapo boycotted elections in 1994.
Not they, we.
Oh, well, yeah, we as Pan-Africanists. But I must put on record that I've always been against the PAC jumping into the bandwagon of this thing.
Sure.
So anyway, the PAC in 1994 did the same. They joined, if you recall, they joined the negotiated Scodesa, what very late, just on the eve of elections. They're doing again now. What I find very wrong with the PAC now is that they either misled or misrepresented their voters and their principles. And I'll tell you why. Few days before that, during the first sitting of the National Assembly, the PAC was sitting in a meeting with the so-called group of the progressive forces or parties that are officially the opposition now. They were sitting in a meeting, they had an agreement, they addressed the media, and the PAC said, we are not going to be part of that nonsense. We are going to stick to, the so-called progressive forces of the left that are concerned about the land. Haibo, 3 days down the line, the PAC wakes up, and now they have joined the government of national unity. The PAC on its own. The PAC that is actually a leading organization in this country to have defined expropriation of land, you understand, and the return of the land. And they want to go and think with their one seat, they can seduce the Democratic Alliance for the expropriation of the land or the return of the land to the rightful owners. And the PAC land policy is very clear. I think for me it's a betrayal, but let me remind you, about a month or so ago, after we were burying Dr. Mutsoko Peko, the former PAC
I was about
president,
to ask you how you think he would feel about this.
But Fresh, when we went to Dr. Mutsoko Peko's funeral, the PAC was not there, if you recall. The Mutsoko family, as well as the PAC former guerrillas or APLA, they actually ran the funeral without the PAC. The PAC leadership was not there. You understand? It has always been the problem with the PAC, that the division of the leadership and all that. And some PAC members and APLA forces that were at the funeral were saying to me, you will see how PAC is not going to get the votes. If I thought it will lose. And I asked why, and few people said to me, because the president of the PAC is compromised.
Sure.
He has received money from white capital, and when he's starting to romance the ANC, and once you start getting money from white capital, so what you do is you shift from a principled position. Sure. Some people may say, yes, they've realized their principle had cost and did not work for them for over the years, and therefore they had to compromise and for the benefit of the country. Will it work? They can go to parliament. They've been very consistent talking about the land and the way the government is not properly set up. Will it make a difference? No. Who will vote with them? When you look at all the parties that are in this new pact who signed the agreement, they are actually they are middle right, they are center parties to the right. The PAC is the only leftist there. We can't talk much about the Patriotic Alliance because they are new, but even the Patriotic Alliance policies, there are more center policies than left. Nobody's, only the PAC that are going to find themselves isolated there. They will not make any significant engagements and moving the government. It doesn't. My biggest worry is, where will the leftists be? They are making less than 30%. The remaining parties out of these 5, including the Freedom Front Plus, they've got approximately 33%. And the parties that have formed government now, they've got comfortably almost 70%. But it will not make a difference. Fresh, the status quo is going to remain in the country. We are going to wake up come the 1st of July. We'll have a new cabinet, and all these old ministers and new ones will be sitting comfortably, making noise in parliament. We will be sitting here after 6 months, nothing much would have changed in this country. It's the same bunch of people, the same policies, the same political parties.
Are you saying with the collaboration between mainly the ANC and the DA, which obviously has been disguised as a GNU?
Yes.
When Grand
Yeah.
everyone else but
This marriage, the others get destroyed. I don't know what you call the bridesmaids and the groomsmaids.
What are they? The bridal team or whatever they're called.
Yes, the marriage is between the ANC and the DA, and they've got the numbers. They've got democracy allows them. They are making 60%. I'm saying none of their policies have changed. None of their leaders have changed.
But are you not thinking that this collaboration means the people are more likely to get some sort of service delivery, given that, one, they have to hold one another accountable, and two, they can't afford to have the electorate look back in 5 years and say, we're going to punish the both of you now?
Do you think they care? I don't think they care. Let me tell you, I've already said they failed to do that.
Yeah.
It may just well, it happens that they are watching each other, then the country may benefit. The DA may want to come and say to the people of South Africa, since we came in,
Things are moving.
Things are moving.
Sure.
There's less corruption. They've already put up front to say appointment of or deployment strategy, we are not accepting it. It may work. It may if it works, thanks God, Fresh, we will be a happy country. You understand? But at whose interest? Who who is the DA saving? The markets, they are in bed with the USA, and they are saving white people's interest. The ANC is lost. The ANC is lost. They are everywhere. That's the problem with the ANC. They are everywhere. They want to plug everywhere. They don't have a point to say, this is our focus and we're going to focus on. They want to be everywhere. I think it also came as a shock for them. They're still reeling with shock of the 40%. You understand? And I think that's also why they are signing these things very fast. They want peace. They want stability. They want the country to go into a slumber again. And I think we are going to go into a slumber. I think we are going to that. I don't want to sound negative, but I just want to prepare our people to say, if you wake up and you are still going to queue to have your child to go to school next year, and the kids will still be dying in pit latrines in Limpopo and the Eastern Cape, do not be surprised. You understand? Because they failed to do and grasp these low-hanging fruits. Maybe they will do it now. What I know is going to do is that the corruption is either going to be professionalized or is going to be minimized, because now somebody is a Bastian Hazen will be watching somebody. And they're going to start be watching each other to catch each other. But let me go back quickly to the agreement. Somebody asked me, is this agreement binding?
Sure.
Can any of them pull out of it? This agreement is not legally binding. It's I call it a gentleman's agreement. Okay? And any of the parties may withdraw out of it. Another one may decide to go to court. It will run forever. But students of law will tell you, every agreement in law is unenforceable. You can revisit it. Even if you marry, you can go and divorce.
There's always an exit clause.
There's always an exit. Even if you signed a binding agreement, you can still go back to court and say, I was drunk when I signed that agreement. I was under duress. I was not in my normal senses and what. And they will and the thing is, once that collapses, the country will go into chaos. And that is my fear. My fear is this agreement between the ANC and the DA is not sustainable unless the DA gets what they want. You understand? During the course of the week or during the inauguration process that morning, the Patriotic Alliance actually issued a statement already saying the DA must not bully them. And they are not coming into this pact or arrangement to be bullied by the DA. So you can already feel the sense, but the two, husband and wife, those two above, for as long as the ANC and the DA find each other, the country will move forward. Not progressively. I'm not saying to be progressive. And I think they will find each other. I've said, with my conversation with you 2 weeks back, I said if I remove emotions and Botsang out of the equation, I think the ANC, and I said it when the elections were announced, I think it makes much more sense for the ANC to go to bed with the DA.
Sure.
Because they are almost the same. Understand? And I've removed emotions from there.
And that's what my argument was going to be, that yes, we might not see the radical transformation that this country possibly needs, but in terms of getting stuff done, in terms of service delivery at a very basic level, we might possibly get the best 5 years we've had in a while. Well, if these two actually realize and remember that we said we're doing this for the people.
Yes.
I think the people might be in for a decent run.
They may. Well, look, we need a radical transformation.
Yeah.
We need an absolute overhaul.
Sure.
Again, we are putting plasters into the wound instead of cleaning the wound. And we may see the potholes, being fixed. We may see schools being improving, but the quality of life, the wealth of the country is still sitting on one side. For me, that's the biggest problem.
Absolutely. In fact, speaking of things not changing, the land issue will always be an issue. And Ntate Moiloa the other day says, but Africans would not know what to do with the land anyway.
Ntate Mbeki Jr.
Yes, sir.
He disappointed a lot of people. I'm one of the people who follow him and admire him. But I actually felt very insulted when Moiloa Mbeki stood up and on an interview, and he said Africans will not know what to do with the land. First of all, he even he spoke about himself, that if they give him a piece of land and a tractor, he wouldn't know what to start. But he must talk for himself. He wouldn't know how to farm, because he never farmed. He didn't grow up in South Africa. He didn't grow up in the farms. He was a privileged son who was living in exile in Europe and the Americas. He can't come and say Africans will not know how to farm. Who sent land is for farming only? Fresh, I've said it before. Agriculture contributes only 6% of the GDP in South Africa. Tourism is even bigger than agriculture.
Sure.
And why does Tate Mbeki think we want land for farming? Why doesn't he think we want mining? And who is mining in South Africa? The conglomerates, they may be running the administration and the ownership, but who are the people in the belly of the earth who are mining and extracting minerals? It's African people.
But also, if I am entitled to a tract of land because my grandfather or my great-grandfather was moved from the tract of land, the rest is none of your business.
Exactly.
The
Actually,
rest is none of your business. If I want to build a smaller and a 2-room,
yes,
and rent it out,
I
I can do that. If I want to sit under a tree there and do nothing the whole day, I can also do that.
Actually, Mweleti Mbeki, I was reminded of the Black First Land First position when we were asked years back, if you want the land so much, what are you going to do with it? And one of the responses we gave that even if we pee and dance on the land, we don't have place to dance. It's none of your business.
And I don't know your explanation.
And how can Mr. Mbeki says Africans don't know about farming? Africans are farmers. We grow up as farmers.
We're the biggest subsistence farmers.
Yes.
If ever there was a title for subsistence farming,
we will go away with it.
I mean, to this day, I'll give you an example. To this day, I was born and raised in Botswana.
Yeah.
And your average Botswana family will have a 3 land system.
Yeah.
So you have your cattle post or your farm,
on your farm,
where
yeah.
your cattle are. You'll have masimo, or
Yeah.
where you plow
and all that.
And you subsistently, you live, what is the subsistence farming basically?
Yes.
And then you also have maybe where you live in the city.
Yeah.
But you have that 3-site system because you have your cattle there. You have my grandmother sent my dad to school from subsistence farming.
Yes, but I think Ntate Mbeki is not in touch with reality, even if he wants to focus on agriculture only. He's not in touch with reality because some of us, I was brought up by the elders in my father's family and my mother's family, and we could live from the small little farm that my maternal grandfather had. We could sell pumpkins and plow maize and all those things.
Yeah.
But it is not only about that fresh. Ntate Mbeki should have known himself, being an economist and a man who has studied and traveled the world. He should have known that, land ownership, it also will restore dignity of African people in this country. When you know that you've got land where, as you have made few examples, where you can build a residential place, where you can plow, or where you can do whatever you want to do with it, it will restore dignity.
Yes.
To do. The fact that we are black, and I've said it, to say the fact that Africans were regarded as black, it is because we have been dispossessed. We stopped being Africans when land was taken away from us. And that the dignity has been removed from us because we are landless. So Ntate Mbeki cannot come and say African people will not know what to do with the land. So for him, does it mean that it's okay that less than 10% of the population in this country owns over 82% of the land? So it's okay for him. But this is the problem with the kids of the privileges, former exiled people, that he doesn't know all these things because he grew up in London. So for him to see white people in the farms in London owning what they call countrysides, and black people must go to school, be regimented, war ties, and then speak English very well. You don't have to speak English very well to be able to operate a tractor. Sure. And what makes Ntate Mbeki think black people can operate tractors when we have driven almost every form of vehicle that has been in the world? A tractor is one of the most simple things to do. And what makes him also to think that we cannot be upskilled can be business farmers?
Or I can say, I've got a piece of land, I've sunk a borehole, now I'm going to find someone who wants to pay me for the next 10 years to use my tract of land. Exactly. There are many ways you can flip your own land without being the farmer yourself.
Being a Pan-Africanist, the question of the land, we actually is very, very close to my heart. And we cannot come and be told that what do you want to do with the land, and we should not waste time, and we should not put energy on land. We should focus on employment. And again, the biggest mistake we have made in this country was to be taken to school, be certificated, so that we can be employees. Everybody's worried about employment. Nobody is sitting here and saying, we want black people to be entrepreneurs.
Absolutely.
We want black people to own the means of production. We just want officers then to be employed. And that's the other challenge we are sitting with. We're brainwashed. We're prepared to be workers of the masters. So the mentality of master slavery is still sitting with us.
Sure.
We need to decolonize the African mind. And in Tatem Beki, if he listens to this show, we must have Timmy and him. I want to decolonize his mind. He needs to decolonize the mind because he's sitting in a very influential position.
Sure.
To can come and make statements like black people, if given the land, I actually thought at some stage, is there a black person talking? Is there a Mbeki talking when you come and talk of land ownership in the country?
Absolutely. I think let's step out of the country for a second, start in Malawi. In fact, some weeks back, Iran lost the president.
Yes.
A week and a bit ago, Malawi lost the vice president.
Vice president, yes.
In a plane crash. Your thoughts, your observations,
first,
your conspiracies?
First of all, Malawi was sitting on a government of national unity. It was a coalition government, not national unity. It was a coalition government. So, look, Fresh, these happenings, one has to apply their mind. I don't think it was a mere accident.
But also, we keep being told about weather this, weather that.
Yes.
But we know what the weather's going to be.
Let me tell you.
Generally.
Yes.
So why are we flying
why
if the weather
flying?
is...
Well, exactly. And also when you look at who are in these planes, it's the vice president of the country, military generals, like the criminal. Now, what I've picked up is that the people who were in that plane were actually people who come from the party of the vice president, mainly, who were seen to be aligned to him. They were going where? They were going to a funeral
of a former minister
from his party as well. So why would the deputy president go to and not the president of a former minister? There's some of the questions that will come. If I'm a president of the country and one of the cabinet members passed on, why wouldn't I not go to the funeral? But then were people who studied meteorology, they will tell you, and I learned it from transport. That's why in Africa mainly, the ministers of transport, they also include weather and meteorology in order to guard and to advise against such. So the link between the weather and the transport sector is very, very close. For when aircrafts can go, when even trucks and vehicles driving, whether in snow or wet roads and things like that. And they go in when they know that the weather is very bad or should have known to fly into that area. I think there's a foul play in this whole thing. I saw the president of Malawi addressing the nation and mourning, and worse is during the funeral. Did you hear what happened as well? I think Malawi needs cleansing. During the funeral, the motorcade that was carrying the coffin of the late vice president crashed into bystanders and 4 people died.
Jeez.
Can you imagine? This whole thing. Some people will think you need some cleansing, the sangomas and all, but it has all not been well in Malawi. And unfortunately, it has now disturbed the coalition government that was formed. And this gentleman was a business person.
Sure.
He has just been recruited into politics by people who had interest. He was taken from it to say, look, we think you can be one of the best people that we place in there, and he's no more at the moment, unfortunately. But may his soul rest in peace, and let's hope it will not destabilize the Republic of Malawi.
Yeah, and condolences to the nation of Malawi.
Yes.
Let's stay in the East. What's happening in Kenya and the legacy of, the rape legacy of the colonial era?
It's not colonial, it's recent, actually.
Is it recent?
It's recent. Remember, what happened was a few years back, the British established a military base in Kenya.
Oh, yes.
A few years back.
Yeah.
And they were giving, now this is where our African leaders...
So what I'm saying is right then. The colonial history.
Well, when you say colonial, people will think it's yesterday.
Yes.
But the British government, like the Americans do, they had a military base there, and they call it a training. Why do they want to come and train in Africa?
How?
And guess how much they were paying Kenya? $500 million US per annum for having that military base. Now, what has happened is, when they were stationed there for training or for whatever, spying, There's been reports that have come out with one of the international organizations to say there were rapes in that village or villages around that military camp. A lot of women were raped. A lot of people went into relationships with the locals and fathered the babies. Now that whole team of military personnel has been returned to England.
Living half-breeds.
Living half-breeds there. And the whole community around it, they say it's a very serious problem actually. They are stuck with children without fathers, without families. It has started to create a social problem because now these kids are being seen different, they look different, they are being teased at school to be called the poor whites, and they don't have fathers. So the whole social family norm is broken down. The government of Kenya has taken it seriously diplomatically with the British, and the British were like, no, but we send soldiers there. We never received cases of rape. If there are cases of rape reported, you can investigate and then we can prosecute and all those things. But it's not only about rape cases and criminal cases. It is about the burden it has left on the Kenyan government to now they must feed and fend for these kids. They must school them, social development, you know, they must take care of these kids. Now, the government that sold their land or gave away their land for half a billion per annum, they are now spending billions to can take care of these kids. And raising a child, me and you will know, it's not a once-off thing, it's not 5 years thing, it will take years.
What do you say to someone who says whether there were British soldiers there or not, those people were bound to fall pregnant anyway?
By who?
By the locals.
Yeah, but if the locals, then you can go and want the locals, you can take them to maintenance courts, you understand? But these guys are not there now to can take their responsibility. But there's a social ill fresh as well that this NGO is raising. To say these kids, they are in inverted commas now, coloreds. They don't look like locals. And if you know how Africa is like, it's not like even colored people in Gauteng. It's rural villages where it's affecting these children psychologically and the community as well. Now, people in rural areas of Kenya are starting to say, oh, so when the whites were here, you daughter of Sbanebane, you were busy with these soldiers. You understand what I'm saying? So it will have a social impact on the lives of the people. If they fell pregnant from Botsang, who's a Kenyan, and I'm there, that woman can go to the maintenance court or the government can say, fend for your children. But the guys who are supposed to be taking care of these kids are not there. So actually, these soldiers have left a serious problem for Kenya, not because they have colored kids, no, but it's a social ills, it's maintenance, it's support, it's taking care of them, it's feeding them and schooling them. And that's where the challenge is. And again, I mean...
So how do we resolve it? Do we resolve it?
Look, I think Kenya should take this in diplomatically and go and take the British. If they are not responding, they must take them to international court.
International maintenance court.
Yeah, what's wrong with that? It's part of the system. They should check them. Those people didn't come there as tourists. They were brought in there by the British government. So I think the Kenyan government should claim for maintenance of those children from the British government. It will be very easy to prove paternity. Very easy. Take all these kids, take all those soldiers, which they know which soldiers were there. There's a record. It's not like they're going to look for the fathers. If Britain had 1,600 military personnel stationed in Kenya for that period, they must take all those men for paternity tests and make those men to pay and maintain. And those that come as a result of rape, they should be prosecuted. But I think Kenya should stand up because this is going to be big fresh. Let me tell you, years back when I was in Zambia, about 3-4 years back with work, I visited a township there that is called Joburg. Even in Harare, there's Joburg. And I asked people, why do you call this over? You even have a place called SABC. And they're like, no. When ANC guys were here, this whole village in South Africans is your brothers and sisters. You go there, people speak Zulu and Sesotho.
Oh, wow.
You understand? So when our guerrillas were there, because they were not always in camps.
Yes.
In Zambia, they were even allocated land and they could interact with
the locals.
There's so many South African children sitting in the middle of Zambia.
And interact, they did.
Me and you will laugh about it.
Nation building,
that was unifying Africa.
Absolutely.
In a true sense.
Amandla.
Yeah, you see, I don't have a problem with that when people acknowledge.
Sure.
And this week I met somebody whose parents are Angolan. and they work in the military, and they're South Africans. Why? Because the father was Angolan, fought on the side of Umkhonto we in Angola. So he's one of those who came to South Africa, and he's a South African. You see, that's a positive way of doing things. Not bring a bunch of British people in and rape people and leave children there as if those people are not human beings. That is inhuman. That's part of what the colonialists did, if you recall that. It's neo-colonialism that has happened.
I was going to say, it's there's no difference between what is happening with this situation and what happened all those years back.
Yeah, except that this one, it was an arrangement. It was an agreed arrangement between the two countries. And these are the challenges that the country and the continent is faced with fresh air. As we South Africans were busy partying this week and inaugurating the president, other countries have other challenges they are faced with. But again, one of the things that has happened in the last month, there's been elections in more than 5 countries, and we have seen coalitions from India. There's coalitions everywhere, Turkey, and everywhere is coalitions. Thinking of it's something very interesting. A friend of mine who is very close to the Russian government has said to me, Botsang, are you aware that there's only 2 countries in the world where they are not in coalition, if not 3? It's China, Russia, and maybe the US.
Sure.
Everybody else, it's coalitions.
And North Korea.
No, North Korea is a special case. But what does it say to us? Democracy, is it solving things or is it messing up things? Why would progressive countries like China and Russia, who are seen as communists, they have stable governments, very stable. They've got some of the fastest and biggest economies in the world, fastest growing and biggest. The US itself has 2 political parties. And I say they never even co-govern. The winner takes out and runs the country. And they are pushing us with regime change plans to break away. Look how they broke away the ANC and the regime change agent, whether it's Russia and the US, the other one breaking away the ANC, the US breaking away the DA. You can sit with divided votes. That's why we don't have a government today. That's why we don't have a winner, because we are sitting with everybody scattered everywhere, and we want to justify it by saying it is democracy. Let everybody who wants to form a political party.
It's the system, Papa. It's the system. If we don't like the system, then we must change it, and we must agree that we don't like the system. Let's change the system. Until then, as long as you don't have 50 plus 1,
and you think the people that we have put, the 400 people who have put in parliament, and we have the guts and the ability to change the system, because the system gets changed there. The lawmakers, those MPs, guys, I think I must write to parliament and say, I will do it for free, to come and give lecture to all MPs to say, guys, you are the lawmakers.
Can you imagine if the IEC on their website or on the app come up with an app where you have a referendum feature that every single person that is registered to vote is on the database already.
Yes.
And you're able to have like snap referendums, where does the nation stand on certain issues?
Yes.
That would be revolutionary.
You see, now we are talking, you are coming with suggestions that will help the country. Referendums are proven tools that have been used by the world to change the status in the country or improve the status in the country.
While we're moving.
While we are moving.
Yes.
Now, we in the Republic of Ntate Ramaphosa, we must wait 5 years to can vote. After you vote, you wait 5 days and you are told that actually even those you voted for, we are going to tell them what to do, because that's what happened. You understand? So I think I never thought of that, but the referendums work. Then if things do not work, I want a form of democracy where if things do not work, we are not going to wait for 2029.
Sure.
We are not going to wait for local elections in 2026. We will say after 6 months to John Steenhuisen and Cyril Ramaphosa, you have had 6 months to give us direction. We are not seeing any direction. Start moving, guys. But we don't have that system. We don't have those powers. You understand? Because only people who can do that is the MPs.
But surely a referendum app would also create chaos, because we are so emotional that we
start insulting each other.
No, we'll start just wanting to vote on everything. Soon we'll be voting on pineapple on pizza. Should there be pineapple on pizza? The referendum.
No, but I agree they are arranged. The topics will be there to say what are the topics that we are going to focus on government business. And I look at what MK has done now, and this is something as open. You know that MK has written to the SABC to say you are a public broadcaster. you must stop using the word government of national unity, because there's no national unity there. And I think they're right, because I've defined what is a GNU, and this is not GNU what is happening. And guided by what? There's no national policy on that. There's an agreement between few parties.
Yeah.
But they've written to them, and if we had a referendum, we were going to go as a nation to say, are we saying this is a GNU? Let's go on a referendum. No, we can't call it a GNU because it confuses the people. And I just hope they will also sort out their house, because those 58, 59 seats in parliament, they can do a difference with Julius and those, because the PAC has now left. I don't think people like Bantolo Misa and Mkonto Wesizwe, they will betray, but with Julius, I was saying this week, and I said this man must keep this. The silence of the EFF is also worrying. You know, we have come back home now.
I don't think it's silence. I think there's almost a presidential maturity that I am sensing from Juju. There's almost we will play with those that we want to play with. I mean, even like with what he said at one presser, that if someone is racist against you, don't call the EFF. Till now, we're only helping those who voted for us. If you're not part of our constituency, don't come to us when the stuff hits the fan.
I don't know whether you call it presidential maturity. I think that just like the ANC, they're in a shock as well. But I also think there's something cooking behind.
You think so?
I think so, Fresh. And I've been in the EFF. I've worked with those guys. I think something is cooking. Do you think the EFF will take the back benches and see PAC leaders and DA taking all those strategic positions in government? Because they're being left out everywhere now. And you remember the last time we were sitting, I said to you, even the decisions for local government are going to be pushed from
the top there.
From the agreement. And it has started saying the DA has agreed that they will fix, ANC must fix the mess in City of Joburg. It is part of the agreement.
Sure.
You understand? To say, we can't have Al Jamal sitting there and running Joburg.
I'm just glad that Josie hopefully will finally have a mayor that has earned it.
Well, what makes you think, you are contradicting your own statement. What makes you think Al Jamal didn't have it? Democracy allows that one seat.
No, democracy does allow for one seat, but you end up now having people that have zero experience, that don't even have a JC, now all of a sudden running things.
Fresh, that is what democracy gives us. We didn't put the prerequisite that to be a political office bearer. You are even old, you still call it JC. Guys, JC is junior certificate. Standard 8.
JC is what you got when you got to grade 10.
Is it grade 10?
Yeah.
Yes.
When you could jump out of the system at grade 10 with a qualification.
Yes.
And I think that's what was being proposed.
It's been proposed by
yes.
education now that we must go back to that system. We didn't put it as a requirement to say to be political office bearers, you must have a certain minimum qualification.
Sure.
You understand? And I don't know why we are afraid to do that. I know the ANC in appointing their political office bearers now, they had criteria to use.
Sure.
But it was not airtight. You know, and they still recycled people. One of the most disappointing one is, you remember the case of a former director general at DERCO who bought land for 118 million in New York?
Yes.
And he was found guilty in 2021 by Menaledi Pando and charged and found guilty. That man, guess where is the man today? He's the MEC of Finance in Limpopo.
Yeah.
Now, just think of it. Somebody who's a director general, a technocrat in a very important department, goes and squanders 118 million. There's a process that finds him guilty of maladministration, and he gets dismissed from work. Boom, 2 years down the line, the man comes back as an MEC of Finance, Nochal.
Chaser boy.
Man. And you think you still have confidence in such people? No, I do not. Fellow South Africans, I don't have confidence in the current administration because it's the same people who have been doing wrong. It will have to take a very special injection to make them take off the coats of maladministration, corruption, and incompetency. It will have to take a special process. But maybe now that they are going to get a bus, to oversee them, things may be better.
You know what I think part of what happened in Joburg was? I think part of what happened in, especially the city of Josie, was the ANC saying, okay, guys, you go do it then. we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see what we can do.
Go.
And there's no process. There's no administration.
And I think that's exactly
It's
what happened.
autopilot,
So,
yeah.
so I'm hoping now that we'll have more intentional leadership within the city of Joburg.
Well, let's hope so. But it's a wait and see situation.
And not, okay, no, then go have fun. Tina will just watch from here.
Yeah.
But that's what it felt like.
Yes.
Almost like go make your own bed, but lie in it and leave us out of it.
And nothing is working in Joburg. You know, you are in water shedding now. You are back into, what do you call it, energy load shedding, but it's called another name now, I've heard.
Yes, load reduction.
Yeah, load reduction. And people don't know that load shedding is back, but it's called load reduction.
Yes, in areas of high usage that will switch you off a bit.
Yes.
But if other areas become like that, we'll also switch them off.
Yeah,
Which is basically load shedding.
Yeah, it is load shedding. So really, we need, I pray this country must invest on professional public administrators,
Yeah.
people who will just do the job, because if people do their work,
And not political people.
no, they must leave political
People who are
out.
in the business of public
Yes.
administration.
And we can start somewhere.
Yeah.
If you are not an engineer,
Sure.
electrical engineer, you cannot lead ESCOM. You cannot occupy a strategic position there. Even if you've got an MBA, you are good in figures,
Sure.
but you must know what is going on there.
Absolutely.
So they must put professional people in those things. If you don't have a transport background, you must not be a DG of transport. Qualifications in any form, in any format, you understand? And I think if we can go, experience comes a long way.
Sure.
And except that I support that Gaten McKenzie must be the Minister of Police. And somebody said to me, why? I said, he used to be a criminal.
Sure.
The best person to go and catch this criminal is somebody who knows how it works in that ground. He must not just take everybody and throw them out of the country to say Mabahambe, but he must deal with crime in the country.
Owns Bison.
Fresh. Very interesting politics in our country, my brother. But yeah, it's a wait and see situation.
Yes,
Look,
sir.
by the time our followers watch this show, and repeat it over the weekend, we'd have probably have a cabinet.
Sure.
I don't think President Ramaphosa is going to wait long. I'm just interested who's going to occupy which position.
Absolutely.
In a sense, yeah. So for me, yeah, it's a wait and see situation. But in conclusion, I think the status quo is going to remain in the country. I don't expect any major or significant changes or move, because the same political parties, the two leading political parties that have been running the country, are back in running the country. So I don't expect changes.
And on that note, where do people find you on social media? How do we order your book?
Thanks, Fresh. You order the book by WhatsApp in 082-485-9100. And on social media is @BotsangM. And on email is botsangm@gmail.com. Thank you, my brother.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thanks for tuning into another episode of #PoliTricks with Botsang Modimowame Moiloa. It's been a ride and a half. Again, rest in peace, Kuvesh. It's weird doing this without you, my dude, but in your honor, we will make sure that this train doesn't stop, can't stop, won't stop. Coming to you from AMP Studios, downtown Johannesburg. We're part of the Africa Podcast Network. Shout out to Pezulu Works for the cinematography. We love your work, Trevor. Trevor and his team are cinematographers, not videographers. If you want it at a movie level, like in a cinema, then get in touch with Pezulu Works with an X at the end. Pezulu Works. Shout out to Otis the Flow Fraser for all of the imaging that we do. And shout out to our executive producer, Gelito Mudisa King. Email us at waw@africapodcastnetwork.com. Till next week, have yourselves an incredible week in spite of yourselves or who your ministers may or may not be.